Imagine this. In the Vietnam War, the company doing some of the most critical work was neither a tank unit nor an army division. This was an ordinary airline. It had a logo. It had civilian aircraft. But those aircraft landed on hidden airstrips, carried agents, pulled people out of places where life is measured in seconds, and sometimes ran missions that did not exist on any official map. That name? Air America. Now a question for you. If the visible side of war is the trenches, what is the invisible side? Answer: the system, logistics, evacuation, covert transport, and above all, deniable involvement. Because there are operations you cannot present as official military action. If you show them officially, international scandal. If you don't, the operation stops. So history produces a strange model. Look civilian, but work inside the war. And in this story, that model was Air America. Now let's enter the part rarely written in books. Most people hear Vietnam and think only of Vietnam. But one of the darkest stages of that war was Laos, the secret war, a parallel conflict that for years the wider public never fully understood. And it is there that Air America stops being just an airline and becomes the nervous system of the war. Here's the first shock fact. In 1970, Air America delivered or airdropped 46 million pounds of food in Laos, mostly rice. In the same period, helicopter flight time exceeded 4,000 hours per month. Pause for a second. Do you realize what that means? This is not a small secret company. This is a state-level air logistics machine. And even more concrete, by those summers, it is noted that Laos operations had roughly 24 twin-engine transports, 24 STOL aircraft, capable of landing on very short strips, and about 30 helicopters, plus hundreds of pilots and technical staff. Now picture this, a mountain village. No road, no bridge. If one pallet of rice doesn't arrive, a child goes hungry tomorrow, and the pallet arrives under a civilian logo. Why don't you see this scene in history textbooks? Because it isn't sold as heroism. It's a mechanism, quiet, cold, effective. Now the second shock fact. In CIA's own story about Air America, there's a detail about the Ravens, U.S. Air Force forward air controller pilots, who in some cases flew unarmed, in civilian clothes, in slow observation aircraft, over combat zones. And those men did not forget how Air America crews helped, anytime, anywhere, professionally. Build the scene like this. A pilot is inside the clouds. The outline of the mountain is invisible. 1 second later, he will hit rock. And the one who saves him is not an official combat unit, but often a civilian-looking crew that knows the region and has flown there for years. That plants a question in the viewer's mind. Where is the Army? Answer: the Army is there, but in this kind of work, other shadow structures can be more agile. Now the third shock fact, it sounds like a movie, but it's real history. In January 1968, in Laos, Soviet-made Antonov An-2 biplanes attack a secret radar site called Lima Site 85. And in that moment, an Air America UH-1D Huey helicopter, pilot Ted Moore and kicker Glenn Woods moves in alongside a biplane. The mechanic fires an AK-47 and the biplane is brought down. Some sources describe it as a rare first in an air engagement. Say it in the script like this. People imagine Air America as a passenger airline. But one day, this civilian company helicopter shoots down an airplane in the air. That shows you how strangely this war was built. Now the fourth shock fact, and it's one of the most repeated pieces of misinformation on social media. Everyone has seen that famous photo, a helicopter on a rooftop, people climbing a ladder. For years, many believed it was the roof of the U.S. Embassy. But reality is different. The photo was taken on the roof of a building at 22 Gia Long Street, then known as the Pittman Apartments. And the helicopter was an Air America Huey. That wrong label was repeated for years. Here is the line that shakes the viewer. So even the most famous image was explained to us incorrectly for years. And now, the most sensitive part, but if you tell it correctly, it creates the highest retention. For years, there have been claims about Air America and drug transport. These claims appear in various sources, but the topic is disputed. In CIA's research on air operations in Laos, the line is that there was no proof. Air America directly participated in drug trafficking, while also acknowledging the broader context of the region's opium problem. Deliver it not as sensational shock, but as a cold reality. There is a claim. There is a counter-research line. But one thing doesn't change. In war, the priority is often not clean purity. It's keeping the operation going. That holds the viewer, because it isn't black and white. Now the fifth shock fact, a detail many people don't know, but appears in sources. In 1964-1965, when search and rescue capability in the region was limited, some U.S. materials note that Air America played a role in rescuing 21 American pilots. That shows again. This company may look civilian, but at the critical moment, it brings back the most valuable resource of war, the pilot. Now let's close the why isn't this written in books part. The essence of such structures is not to be seen. This isn't just secrecy, it's a mechanism. Look civilian, stay agile, have a legal cover that works on paper, but deliver outcomes that serve the state's needs. And there's a spirit in CIA's own story. Anything, anytime, anywhere, professionally. Meaning the core was not ordinary aviation, but the mission. The most disturbing lesson of this story is this. Sometimes what changes history isn't a general speech. Sometimes what changes history is an airstrip, a radio call, a night landing, a pallet of rice, a helicopter standing on a rooftop. And until you recognize these invisible systems, you don't fully understand how war actually works. Air America shows us that war is sometimes not in the trenches, but hidden inside a logo.